Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today, I'm joined with Joe Martin, who's the founder and owner of the Huntsville Adventure Boot Camp in Huntsville, Alabama. Joe, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation. So just real quick, tell my listeners a little bit about who is Joe Martin.
Sure. Before we get started, if you do not know the backstory of this podcast right here, please go do yourself a favor. Read about Dan's mom. She needs more than a podcast named after her. Because go read about that story. It's amazing. That's a great why I wanted to be on this show. And it's an honor to be here on such an amazing lady. So check that out first. And for me, I grew up, I was an athlete. I was a football guy. I was on the basketball team. I had a greatest seat there. I practiced a lot, didn't do a lot of playing, but I was there. Fouled out in 2 minutes one game. So athletics was kind of my background, but I was mainly a football guy, and I was a lineman, so I was always trying to get bigger, and I got bigger and overweight, and my football career ended with an injury. And I decided, hey, I'm 250 pounds now. I can either start creeping up towards 300 or I can kind of figure this thing out. So I lost weight and started, figure out how to eat and exercise, and like, man, this is great. I would love to do this for other people. So I went to college, got a degree, and started teaching fitness. And I was working in gyms, and I worked for the Redstone Arsenal, which is a military base here, and a Huntsville Hospital Wellness Center. And I would see these women come in, and I would take them on their tours, and you could just see that I don't feel comfortable here. This is not for me. And I think about my mom, who would set foot in a gym, and she would say, I might walk on that treadmill, but I'm not going to go and whatever's going on in that other part of the gym. So I knew there would be something for them. So I started some Huntsville Adventure Boot Camp with one class. We had a 5:30 a.m. class, and it just was such a need that we've exploded. That's all I do for a living now. So it's been a great thing that we have these just for women classes that have done so well, because I think it was something needed, and the market has served it. So,
yeah, that's awesome. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. Is what I didn't say in the introduction, and if the listeners didn't pick up on it, is the Huntsville Adventure Boot Camp is for females only, and obviously, me being a former mama's boy and being raised by a single mom for a large part of my childhood, I understand. And I seem to be able to relate to women and single moms and stuff like that better than anyone. So it really drew me to wanting to have you on the show to kind of, talk about this concept. I'd never really heard of a concept of a, adventure boot camp, for women only. So first of all, I think the other thing is a lot of people, when they hear boot camp, I think they envision you out in the middle of the field just screaming and yelling at women and getting them, get down, get up, get down. So that's not the way Joe goes about his boot camp. So tell me a little bit about your method of your adventure boot camps.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, man, I've thought about changing the name 1,000 times just because that's what you think of, right? You hear boot camp, you think of like Full Metal Jacket and all these like horrible scenes of people yelling and screaming. And that's just kind of the boot camp term, is just getting back to the basics of exercise. People get it so complicated that, it's basically, there was squat and push and pull and all these different movements that, the cavemen were doing back in the day that humans need for functionality. So that's kind of what it's based on. There's no yelling. There's no screaming. There'd be a mutiny. It's just me versus all these women. And they're tough too. So they would beat me up. And my mom's there too. My mom still comes. She's retired. She still comes to the 5:30 a.m. class. She said, if I want to, I can go back to bed after class. But just getting kind of back to the basics, and it's all about lifting each other up. It's all positive atmosphere. It's not where you are right now. It's where do you want to go? How can we get you there? It doesn't matter what shape, size, age you are. We find different levels. Hey, there may be a 25-year-old here doing her thing, and then my mom in her 70s doing her thing over there. So there's all these different levels, and you take pride in that. Everybody gets results, and nobody gets left behind.
That's awesome. Have you ever had any like someone's reaching out to sign up for it, and they meet you, or they understand that it's a man running these, female boot camps? Have you ever had anyone who's kind of been like, well, wait a second, I thought this was, the girls' club, so to speak. What are you doing here?
I think maybe in the beginning, but I've been doing this for 13 years now. I think my reputation kind of precedes me that he's not that guy. He's gonna treat you right. He'll take care of you. And be honest, I keep getting back to my own mom that when she's in the class, she's right there. And I think of how everyone in my class, if there's another trainer, how would I want them to treat my mom? And that's how I treat everybody who comes to my class. You're gonna get respect. You're gonna get the utmost care. I'm gonna take care of you like my own family member. So I think after a while, you've been doing it long enough that kind of people hear about you and they know how you go about things, and it makes it okay. So for better or worse, man, I am just one of the girls at this point.
I guess he can always say like, hey, look, if you have any doubts, come to this 5:30 in the morning session where my mom's there. And, if you got a problem with me, you can tell my mom about it.
Yeah. You got complaints. She's the complaint department. Yeah.
So she's kind of keeping you in line in that 5:30 session.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that is so cool. It seems like you have a very good relationship with your mom. So when you first wanted to branch out into this, was there a conversation with your mom in particular that, like, hey, what do you think of me doing this? Did that happen at all? Or,
it's actually my dad's idea. My dad saw this ad and he heard about these boot camps. He's like, hey, I was coaching football at the time and doing personal training and fitness training. And, it's like, you could kind of combine those two. I think you'd be really good at this. So I looked into it and I was like, hey, the more I read about it, the more that concept kind of like, yeah, I think I would love that. And then, when I started the class, my mom was like, well, I'd like to come. She tried to pay me too. I was like, whoa, what are you doing? I've got plenty of expenses under your belt. There's no need to pay for this class. So it was kind of a combination. My parents are the greatest. They've supported me in everything I've done. Anything I've needed help with, they've always been there for me.
That's awesome. And just how important is that to have that strong, family support? Obviously you said you went through some trials prior to, starting the boot camp. How did that strong family support just help you get through those trials that you went through to where you are today? And if I know you touched a little bit in your intro about some of the stuff you went through. If you want to expand on that a little bit, please feel free.
Sure. Yeah. So in high school, my whole identity was wrapped up in sports. That's you think I'm a football guy. That's kind of how I consider myself, and that's almost all my friends were those guys too, because that's what I spent all my time doing. Either lifting weights or practicing or playing games and all that stuff. So, and when that was kind of taken away, I thought I was going to play in college. So when that was taken away, I played my last 2 years with a broken wrist. So I had to get surgery and they had to take a bone out of my hip and put it in my wrists, and so I was going to be in a cast for 6 months, and then I made stupid decisions and wound up in jail and on probation and all these things. So I'm overweight at this point. So my football career is over. My girlfriend broke up with me. One of my pets died. My grandma died. All these things and I just kind of spiraled down this thing because I was focused on the negative, and that's all I was focused on. Is oh my gosh, I've screwed this up and I'm messing this up and this keeps happening, and then I just got depressed and got to the point where I was just going to kill myself, and be honest, there's two things that kept me from doing it. It was my faith. I was in church. I wasn't really a church guy, but I was there. Some of that soaked in. So if that's your parents out there that, bringing your kids to church, it matters. So it can kind of soak in. And the other was, what it would do to my parents, if someone, your son killing themselves. So that's strong family bonds. Probably why I'm here today. It's just, if I didn't have that support and I wouldn't think my parents wanted me around, then I wouldn't be here today.
That's incredible. And I do think that, for parents out there listening, I mentioned this on a podcast I was on just not too long ago. When you get frustrated thinking that your child is not listening to you or not taking your advice, like, just take heed that, believe it or not, they are. Like, they really are. Like, that may not seem like it in that moment, because I can tell you many, many times where I frustrated my mother when she was on this earth. But, now here I am honoring her legacy and keeping her memory alive and her spirit alive. So, for any parent out there in those times when, you're really struggling with, am I doing this right? What am I doing wrong? Like, the truth is, you're probably not really doing anything wrong. They're just a kid. Yeah. And that's what kids do.
Yeah, specifically boys. They're idiots. It's, man, I mean, well, some of them still are, like myself, but your brain's not fully formed till you're 25. So like I mentioned, I coach middle school football. That you'll ask these kids like, why did you do that? And they'll have no idea. It's like they blacked out. They have no idea. Their brain doesn't know what's happening from moment to moment. So you'll make these decisions and do these things. You're like, what is wrong with you? It's like they don't even know, So take heart. They're that stuff's probably in the back of their brain somewhere, and maybe it'll come out when they need it.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes that's going to be in their darkest moment, and
right. Yeah.
So to hear that literally things that your parents were teaching you, by taking you to church and just showing you the right way, even though in that moment you weren't listening, in your darkest moment, that's what came back to you and literally saved your life. It kept you from making that decision. So again, parents, just keep doing what you're doing. They're listening. They may not seem like they're listening, but they are. So I love the fact that you could reiterate that. I know my mom used to tell me when I first became a parent, and even many years into my own parenthood, she said, God only requires us to do two things for our kids, and that's teach them how to walk and teach them how to walk away. And the second one is a hell of a lot tougher than the first one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's so true, that as parents, we just want to, we want to wrap our kids in a bubble. We want to protect them from the bruises and scars. But at the end of the day, like, that's how we live. Like, we got to fall down. We got to get the crap kicked out of us every once in a while. And from that, we learn. So, I think, again, you're a perfect example of that concept of just, let him fall down, let him get banged up a little bit. And, he's going to get up. And when he does get up, we're going to be right there to support him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Regardless of what it is, whether it's a new business venture, like you had started on, to whatever, and look what you're doing today. So, how tough was it in the beginning? Because like you said, this was even now you're 13 years into it. And I personally don't know of a whole lot of other concepts that like you're doing for female only boot camps or gyms or fitness or whatever. So 13 years ago, what was it like really kind of blazing a trail and starting this concept?
Oh, let me tell you about the first class ever to tell you how far I've come. So I spent months literally planning this very first class. Like, I'm gonna blow their minds. This is gonna be the word is gonna spread so far and fast after this first amazing class that I may be able to retire by next year. I'll be so rich. So I got this greatest plan ever, and it involves a track we're meeting at an elementary school. So the adventure part is we meet outside for a couple of our classes. That way we can do just about anything we want. So this is all based around at the track at this elementary school. So we do a warm up in the bottom park at the parking lot, and we go up to this hill to get ready for the greatest workout ever. And there is a biblical swarm of gnats. I mean, people are running and screaming. I think I said it's every man for himself at one point, and I'm the only man there. So people are like, they got gnats in their eyes and their face and their teeth. And we all run back down to the parking lot, and everyone's like, got their hands on their knees, like catching their breath and getting gnats out of their face. And I'm just in shell shock. Like, I don't, like my plan is over with. Like, I don't know what to do. It's like, like Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face. And I have been punched in the face with gnats all over the place. So I managed to get through the class, but one person immediately comes up to me and is like, I'm going to need a refund. I was like, please give me a chance here. I'll figure this out. So, I look back on that and I was like, well, you want to have a backup plan to have your backup plan and then have a backup plan after that. Because you at the outside, man, you don't know what's going to happen. So I learned a valuable lesson from that about planning these classes out. And I just think about how far I've come from the gnat days to now. So it's been a great journey. We started with one class, we got 4 classes. At one time we had 3 locations, and so we've thousands of women have gone through our classes at this point. But it was almost over the very first day with the gnats.
Yeah, that's funny. And I was thinking that exact same Mike Tyson quote as you're telling that story, because I use that a lot. I use that quote a lot because, again, you can plan it out as well as you want, but there's going to be something that you better be able to, understand how to be fluid and how to make adjustments. So, now you said you're running 4 classes, and they're, of various. So I guess when somebody signs up, are they signing up, for the 5:30 session in particular, or do they kind of have like Monday I can do 5:30, Tuesday I can do the afternoon class, or how does that work with your?
Majority stick to one class, but they do have that flexibility to go back and forth. So we have 2 outdoor classes and 2 classes at my gym. 5:30 a.m. p.m. are outside, and some people switch back and forth. It's like, hey, I've got a doctor's appointment. Can I come to the early morning one? Or hey, I'd like to sleep in. Can I come to the evening? So yeah, they have some flexibility in that.
Yeah, and I guess I would think that in August in Huntsville, that 5:30 a.m. class is probably pretty attractive.
Yes. Yeah, that PM class has been rough. I'm not gonna lie, man. It's been rough, but we do have some shaded area that we can work with, but that humidity doesn't go away because you're in the shade.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know, for myself, this time of year, it's like the earlier I can get up and walk the dog, the better, because
Yeah.
I mean, not just for him, but for me. I mean, obviously I don't want his paws on hot pavement and stuff later in the day, but it gets hot fast, and we're not in Huntsville right now. So you're
Yeah.
in a little bit different dynamic than what we're in.
Yeah, well, you got that heat too. So hot's hot. People talk about dry heat and all that. Man, hot is hot, man.
Yeah, it is. So when you started it, did you, I know you said like you had this great plan, you're going to be done in a year, make so much money, but in reality, did you really envision it being what it would be 13 years later? Like, did you really think that it would get to where you are today?
I really didn't. I was working full time on the Army base here. I was working for MWR, if anyone out there is familiar with that. It's morale, welfare, and recreation. So we ran the gyms and the intramural sports for the troops out there on the arsenal. So I thought I would be doing that. It's a pretty good job. It's whether you're good or bad, you get paid every 2 weeks. That was nice, and benefits and all that good stuff. But I thought I could just do this on the side, have a nice little side gig, do that before I came into work. But the more I got into a couple of years, and I was like, hey, I think I really got something here. And but in the very beginning, I thought it would just be a nice little way to make some extra income and kind of do something that I enjoy doing and make a little money doing it.
Yeah, and I know before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about um, I had coached 30 years in baseball, and in the last couple of years of my tenure, I ventured out into girls softball and even some girls baseball, and just talking about the difference in coaching and the difference between how receptive the females are compared to the males. And obviously you're dealing with both worlds right now with junior high football and then fitness with women. But just again, when you first started, were you surprised about the difference of how the females just kind of take it in and are really listening and are really looking to improve themselves compared to males? Or how did that, or were you expecting that?
I was expecting it because I've been doing a lot of personal training, and women were always my best clients. They showed up more consistently, they worked harder, they listened better, as you realize, that, and then they're focused more on doing it right rather than doing it with a bunch of weight, which is a huge thing to think about. And another thing is I wanted to make a difference is I would talk to these women, and they would be successful in business, they would be great moms, they would be a pillar of the community, someone that goes out and does charity work all the time and all these different things, but they felt like a failure because maybe they had a few extra pounds or they didn't feel quite comfortable in their body, and they just felt like failures. Like, man, that's not right. That kind of made me mad that kind of these things out there in the media, that they get these messages all the time that if you don't look a certain way, then you're not a success. So I wanted to give them a place where they could feel comfortable in their skin and just get rid of that stigma about that they could just focus on themselves, not this other craziness in the media.
Yeah. Because that is so true. We're, again, for whatever reason, society, puts that identification on females, and that's across all realms, across, sports to, Hollywood, the whole 9 yards, where, an actress who's in her 50s, there's just a different look at her as opposed to the male actor who's in his 60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when the term, oh, she looks good for her age, like you never hear that, you know in a male context,
Yeah.
like, oh, he looks, unless he's like 100 and he looks like he's 50, but like that's the only thing where you hear that so much with
Well, yeah, if you
you
look
know
in the fitness world, if you're over 40, there's no advertising headed your way. They think you're pretty much dead, that you don't exercise and you don't do these things. If you ever get on Instagram, it's all like 20-year-old scantily clad men and women out there showing off crazy exercises no one no one really does in real life. You don't see the actual 43-year-old mom who gets two kids ready to go to school, gets her workout in, goes to work, comes home, and does all these different things. And still maintains their fitness level. I mean, that's the people that I'm really impressed with. I'm not impressed with if you're 21 and you have super genetics and your metabolism's off the chain, and you wake up looking good. You do one bicep curl and your body fat goes down 1%. It's the people that are struggling with the hormones and family times and all these different things that figuring out that work-life balance, man. That's what amazes me.
well, and even when you think about what a female goes through in motherhood alone and childbirth, I mean, literally having this little human rip them apart from the inside out,
Yeah.
and then bounce back, like when I read stuff, with like some of the women from like the US women's national soccer team who give birth and then, you know 6-7 months later playing in the World Cup. It's,
Yeah.
like as a male, like you can't even comprehend
No,
that,
if pregnancy was up to dudes, we would have all died off years ago.
yeah, there would be zero population for
Zero.
sure.
Yeah, it'd be over. The NFL season would be terrible if we had to have that, right? We couldn't. None of them would play.
Yeah, they would need 2 years off
Yeah,
afterwards.
at least, right? Yeah.
But yeah, it's incredible, just the differences. So I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you're focusing on that, and that it's, obviously it's growing, so you're doing things the right way. What are kind of your future goals for the boot camp at this point?
At this point, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not gonna be honest with you. I love what I'm doing. I'm making a difference. I get the chance every day to get up and change someone's life. What's better than that? Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Get up at 4 a.m. is not my favorite part, but that's the only hard thing I do all day long is get up early. After that, it's fine. Everything's fine after that. So just continue to grow it. We've got some online class we're looking to grow, and then our in-person classes are doing really well. I'm just going to keep full speed ahead. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about your online classes. It's obviously, for my listeners out there, I don't know how much my audience is in the Huntsville area, but from what you just said, that isn't really a stumbling block if they would want to get involved. So talk a little bit more about what you got going on online.
Yeah, so during COVID, we kind of had to pivot like every other business. You had to figure something out. So we started these follow-along classes that, all you need is an exercise mat and some dumbbells. Or, my wife was out of town one time. She used a big can of yams, for her weights. So, just figure out these ways and they have, all shapes, sizes, and abilities. It's 30-minute workouts. Most people can find 30 minutes in their day to, focus on their strength and cardiovascular and flexibility that all fitness levels could do. We've got people in California and North Carolina and New York and all these people that, they get my emails and hey, I'd like to work with you, but, I'm in, Saskatchewan, if that's a place you've heard of, how can I? So we started these and we kept them going after COVID just because people really like these workouts, because try to make them fun, all levels can do them. You can make them as hard or as easy as you want to. I always offer 3 different levels. Hey, if you want to make it harder, try it this way. If you need some low impact version, we got this. And then here's the one kind of in the middle. So just people looking to switch it up a little bit, they can try that. You get 4 workouts a week. You get 3 strength training, which I think is the fountain of youth and the most important thing to focus on. That's me. And then 1, you got a cardio, core, flexibility type workout per week.
Yeah, that's very cool. And like you said, every business in the world had to figure out how to pivot and how to get through COVID. Tell me a little bit about, what other adjustments to your world, because again, you're in a space that requires human interaction.
Yeah.
So I guess at that point you're probably 10-11 years into the business,
Yeah.
probably just getting to that point where you're really starting to thrive, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, we're taking a break. I mean, I'm sure mentally there was some stuff you were having to deal with to get through that. And then, how long was that setback before you said, all right, this is a setback. This is what we're going to do to get through it. So how did you deal with COVID?
Man, I'll be honest. I was ready to go right away because it's not just going to let my livelihood just go down the drain because there's a global pandemic. What kind of excuse is that? So luckily, I do have a business coach named Pat Rigsby who is specific to the fitness industry, who kind of calm you down, kind of, hey, let's get a game plan together, and just sat down and talked with him to figure some things out. For us, we were able to come back much faster than other people because we have outdoor classes. We can space people out, keep them away. We're in a giant space. You can be as far away as you want to. So we were able to come back much quicker with our in-person classes than a lot of people. And then like I said, we keep those online classes going and just kind of work with people as they could. If you're more comfortable staying at home, completely. You do what's best for you and your family. Here's the online workouts. You can do those. But if you're ready to come back, hey, we can space you out, keep you safe. We're not sharing equipment or anything like that. So we just, and that was a blessing for us that we were able to come back much quicker than some people. Like I had friends in California shut down for 2 years, completely lost their business. They still having to pay their overhead of these gyms and no income coming in. So it's a bad deal for a lot of people that we were able to overcome much quicker.
Yeah, and that is huge, being in the outdoor space, and like you said, you're in a large area, so yeah, it's like hey, we don't have to adhere to the 6-foot social distancing. You guys can be 25 feet social distancing.
Hey, wherever you feel safe. Yeah, I can yell. That's the only yelling I'll do if you're far away.
Right. That's pretty cool. So, anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to make my listeners aware of?
Just one thing. If you're listening right now, I want you to either pause it or make a note to do this right now. I want you to go and give Dan a 5-star review. He's bringing some great content out in the world, and more people need to know about it. Just go give him a quick review, give him 5 stars. He deserves it. Admit it. Dan deserves your 5 stars. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, if you're not currently exercising, don't get overwhelmed. If you're really overweight right now and you're like, oh, I've got so far to go, I might as well not even start, which I deal with people that a lot. Just what's the smallest thing you could do right now that you could say 100% I could do that? Is it walk to the mailbox? Is it walk around the block? Is it eat one healthy meal this week? Kind of break that goal down to something small that you think that's so insignificant and so small that I might as well not start. Start there. The hardest part is doing one thing. So start there. There's this book called Atomic Habits, and it talked about this guy who would just go to the gym and he would just sit there. He didn't work out, but he made that the habit of going to the gym. And then eventually he started working out, and then he kept that going. Eventually he lost 100 pounds, but it all started with him standing in a gym doing nothing. But he started with that one small thing that he knew completely he had control over and he could do. So think about what that could be for you. And then your goals will snowball from there. Maybe you walk, 2 blocks or something like that. You eat 2 healthy meals, something like that, where you just kind of keep going. But you need that spark to get you. The hardest thing is getting started. So if you can just get started, I guarantee you will keep going.
That first step, I actually, right before we started traveling full time, that was one of my blogs, was every journey begins with the first step. And
yeah,
I wrote that when we actually put our house on the market, and the sign went in the yard. That was like, wow, this is real now. Like, we are really going to do this. But it goes with like you just said, anything that you want to do, that first step is always the hardest.
Absolutely.
So you get that one out of your way, and it's just one more step. So I love that concept. And even what you said about walking the mailbox, or sometimes I tell my wife I'm helping her, because in the RV we got to park at the very furthest parking spot from the Walmart when we get there, and I'm like, hey honey, I'm just helping to get your steps in today. So even stuff like that, not even if you're in an RV, but park in the furthest parking spot instead of the closest one, and you can get some extra steps in.
It all matters.
Seem like it does.
It all matters. It adds up for sure.
So, Joe, how can people get a hold of you if they want to get involved in the online classes, or if any of my listeners are in that Huntsville area? How can they get a hold of Joe Martin and become part of what you're doing?
Sure. Kind of the hub of everything is HuntsvilleBootcamp.com. It's got the in-person classes, online classes, got the link to my podcast, got the link to my book, all that good stuff in there. But that's kind of the hub. So HuntsvilleBootcamp.com.
And that's one thing we didn't talk a whole lot about, is your book. So before we go, give a little plug on the book as well. Where can they get it? Obviously through your website, but what exactly is the book about? Tell us a little bit about that. Give your little commercial for the book.
Sure. It's just kind of some weight loss strategies and getting stronger and getting in shape without the guilt and shame. It's all about changing your mindset, and it's based on stories too, from my life, other people's lives, short little chapters, bite-sized chapters. You can find it on Amazon. It's $9.99. You could afford that. Or if you're a Kindle Unlimited person, it's free. It won't even cost you anything. Go in there. But it's mainly just, I call it edutainment, because it's not, everyone's got, if you go on the internet right now, you can find any information you want about fitness, nutrition, workouts. It's all out there. But you got to figure out something that works for you. And this works on your mindset. It's talking about, the things that you need to change in your brain to really get in shape. And I do that through kind of some funny stories or touching stories and these type of things. So it's not just straight information, but I think it's a little entertaining. And it's, like I said, it's little bite-sized chapters, because that's all I can write. So yeah, if you go check that out, and I would appreciate that. And if you think it mattered to you, give me a nice review on Amazon. That'd be cool.
Absolutely. So why did you think it was important? Both, you're doing this workout, you're doing this great, the great work you're doing with the Huntsville Adventure Boot Camp. Why did you feel it was important to, write the book, but then, also to start this podcast that you have going as well, to kind of, spread your reach? Why did you think that was important?
I'm on a mission to change the world, Dan. I want to reach as many people as I can, because I think in the fitness industry, there's too many people that go about the negative side. They put the fear tactics into you. You're about, hey, you're gonna be overweight the rest of your life. You'll always be out of shape, and just that's not how it works in the real life. I deal with real life people. I wanted kind of the way I go about things, and the way I go about them may not work for you, but I'm trying to find as many people as I can that I can help in any way I can. So the book's helped a lot of people. The podcast done the same. I started that during the pandemic, because if you turn on the news, did you see anything positive on the news? I'm sure you did not. It was doom and gloom every time. So, because that's what sells, right? If it bleeds, it leads, is the quote they always say. But I want to kind of counterbalance that with, stories from inspirational people and cool things going on in the world that maybe you hadn't heard about, and maybe some dad jokes you need in your life or something like that. So just kind of putting a little positivity to balance all that negativity.
I love that. And that's why I love podcasting so much as well. It's just, I think it's the last true platform where it's not all about it bleeds, it leads. It is about generating positivity and inspiration. And, what I love about this podcast is, hearing all these different stories from all these, incredible people from different backgrounds who have these stories that can truly inspire anyone. And that's why, I love telling these stories. I love, meeting the Joe Martins of the world and telling their stories. So I think podcasting is an incredibly powerful tool. And I think you can see that just by the way, it's taken off. Where years ago, I had actually started podcasting with my old organization back in 2012. And, when I first started doing it, I personally didn't even know what a podcast was, and then when Sandy and I decided to sell everything, I enjoyed it so much that, I told my producer at the time, because really all I did in my first podcast is sit down and have an interview with somebody. I had no idea how it actually got to the internet. I had no idea how it got on iTunes or any of that stuff. I just knew I went to a studio, had a conversation, left, and a couple of days later got a link that, we could share on our social media and website and that sort of stuff. And, but I love telling the stories. And, so I went to my producer when we decided to sell everything and said, look, this is something that I definitely want to do. I absolutely want to get out there and continue to tell stories. So, can you show me how the background works, and, how all the magic happens to get it out there to the world. And, she did that for me. And I do, I think it's an incredible platform. And now it's like, almost everyone you meet, they're like, oh, you do a podcast? I do a podcast too, So it's like, it's, you can see how much it's just totally exploded. And I think that is why, because it's a platform where, we can lift each other up, and there's no competition. That's what's so cool about podcast hosts, is there's no competition. Like, you're plugging me, hey, go there and give them 5-star reviews, because that doesn't hurt your podcast. If anything, it helps your podcast. And same with me. Go find Joe's podcast, give him a 5-star review, subscribe, check it out, because there truly is no competition in this world. And so many people that I've Joe and I met through this platform called Podmatch, which I've mentioned in several of my other shows. And so many times, I have a guest or I'm on a guest, and then it turns out, vice versa, they'll invite me to be on their show or whatever the case is. Or, I just had an instance where I was on a show and I'd listened to, one of her previous episodes, and the guest she had, it was just so engaging to me. So I just, hey, would you mind introducing me to, this guest that you had on your show? And she's like, absolutely. And before an hour after we were done recording, I have an email introduction, because again, it's not like me having the same guest as she did on her show was going to take away from her show. If anything, we're lifting each other up. They're going to say, oh, this guest was also on this show. I'm going to go check out that show too. So that's what I love really about the podcasting community. It's very similar to the RV community, in my opinion, is that, we've really lost this sense of community in the world. And the fact that I'm part of not one, but two very engaging and very caring communities between the podcasting community and the RV community, I just feel incredibly blessed. So to be able to sit down and have conversations with people like you just, makes everything I do worth it for sure.
Yeah,
so
that's been my favorite part, man. I've met so many cool people through these opportunities, and just sitting down like this, and just, I mean, these days, how many times do you sit down and actually talk to somebody like this? It's pretty rare. And the more you talk to people, you find out, well, I don't care where they're from, their background, race, whatever, we're more alike than we're different. So man, we can just sit down there and figure that out. Then I think hey, we're changing the world, baby.
And I agree. And I've said that exact same statement so many times to people as well. Again, just talking about the RV community, and we're extra blessed because, there've been a couple times where, I've met somebody through this platform here, and then we're coming through town and I reach out and I'm like, hey, we did a show together. You want to grab dinner or something? Don't be surprised, Joe, when we're coming through Huntsville. If
come on down.
Hey, let's grab a healthy meal.
Hey, judgment-free zone over here, man. We'll go eat cheeseburgers. I don't care.
All right. So, yes, I love that. But this was a great conversation. I appreciate it. It brings me to my final question, which, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places. And I just kind of explained, the whole concept of that is being able to tell all these stories. But it comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song called Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. So what's one of the things that Joe's doing to make the world a little bit better place? Now, you've already answered it, but just, can it down into your little, what is one of the things you're doing?
One thing I do every day, I make sure I make somebody smile. I think that's super important in these times we're going through. It could be something stupid I'm talking about on Facebook, or just saying smile, or just smiling at a stranger, something like that. I think stuff like that really matters.
I think that has been my most common answer on the show. Over 130 episodes now. Actually, by the time this comes out, probably be closer to 140. That's been one of the most common answers. And I love that answer. And if we can all do that, if that's our daily goal, to make one other person smile, like, man, just think of the ripple effects, because when you make that person smile, they immediately want to make someone else smile.
Right.
So it's a little thing that really turns into a big thing. So I love that answer for sure. So folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. Hop on over to Amazon, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. While you're there, hop on over to Joe's page and pick up his book and get them shipped the same day. Pick which one you want to read first, and you can go from there. But Joe, really appreciate you having on the show. This is a great conversation, and hopefully we catch up to you in Huntsville someday.
Oh, that'd be great, man. It's an honor being on this show, and keep honoring your mom, man. That's so cool what you're doing.
I appreciate it.